Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Refine the Mind. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking down a series that we worked on called A Chef's Cure.
Why is it called that anyway?
A chef's cure? Because their isolation dish is the cure to COVID. Welcome to My Society Studios kitchen. I'm not a drunk, I'm just a connoisseur.
If you want to watch the rest of this promo reel, you can watch that on our website. If you want to watch all the episodes, that's all available on our YouTube channel right here. So I'll set up some time codes for the segments in this video, but before I jump into it myself, I just want to talk about the background and how this show all came to be. So earlier in 2020, we're actually working on a pilot for another hospitality series.
Chef, great to see you.
Thank you, man.
We got lined up today.
But once lockdown kicked in, we had to shut down production on that one. With the lockdown restrictions that were in place, we weren't really allowed to film outside unless we're part of a news corporation or doing things for news, but that's not the type of content that we're really making. And it kind of occurred to us that we were actually allowed to film inside the studio space as long as we're adhering to certain guidelines and rules and restrictions. And so the idea came about where, why don't we film a hospitality series inside the studio space? And that's how A Chef's Cure was born. The overall idea of A Chef's Cure was to have Angel or Angel, our host, who was also hosting our other hospitality series, to be the host of this show, and to bring in chefs to cook their lockdown dishes. So dishes that they cooked during COVID and during the lockdown, so that other people at home can also replicate and cook these dishes. And after each cooking episode, we'd do a podcast with the chef where the chef would talk about their cooking, their profession, and just everything else. So once all of that was kind of in place, we then set out to build the set. Special shout outs to Kurt and Kurt's dad, Nilo, who helped to build the set and put all that stuff together within basically a week. And also huge shout outs to our friend Angel, who not only helped to bring the chefs onto the show, but was an awesome host as well. All right, let's get this in focus, and that's looking pretty good. All right, sweet. So real quick side note, the weather's a little bit sporadic at the moment. It's raining and windy, and so there might be some audio issues, but since we're here, I just thought, hey, let's finish this video anyways. Also, I've been using the Tilta Nucleus Nano, which is a wireless follow focus system. And I just want to quickly say that this is such a cool piece of gear. I've been using it a little bit more frequently lately, and it just feels really nice and it works really well. Anyways, let's put that aside and let's get into the set. So even before we get into the actual set itself, I want to talk about the main stage because it is actually quite important when we approach building our sets. So the stage looks something like this, and it's a raised platform, and basically it's made up of pallets, which raises it, and particle boards on top, which serves as our floor. The reason why this stage is also so important is because the floor of our warehouse is made of concrete, and if we want to build sets that had some structural integrity, we'd have to pretty much drill into the ground itself. That would be quite costly, it would take a lot of time, we'd have to ask for permission, and we just don't want to go through with that. So the best option was to build a raised platform and use that platform to be the base for where we can screw things into and just do whatever we want. So let's get into the actual set itself. So the set was comprised of MDF boards just like this, and they all had some supporting beams around them as well just to hold them up. The MDF boards and the beams were pretty much sourced online, the tip, Facebook Marketplace, and just wherever we could get some scraps from. So again, going for a very reasonably priced and basically free kind of setup. The countertops actually come from a very interesting place, again, Facebook Marketplace. This office space was going to throw out all of the cubicles and chairs as well. And I'm gonna let Kurt explain how we ended up grabbing all this stuff from that location.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, so we kind of found this spot on Facebook Marketplace. It's pretty funny because I don't even know what the hell I was looking for, to be honest. What was I looking for? I was looking for plasterboards. So basically, like, we put this thing together. This was like a stage, we were building up a set, and I wanted to put plasterboards so I can paint it, put some stuff on it, hang rails, and do all this cool shit. So like, we couldn't find anything, and then I was just searching, and I found like an office that was getting rid of their stuff. So I was just like, oh well, we could use an office space. And so, voila.
So we went in, spent a couple hours dismantling a whole room worth of cubicles and dividers and desktops, and that's pretty much where the kitchen countertops came from. The cupboard space in the back was just made by Kurt and Kurt's dad as well. Along the ceiling are the supporting beams, and they were there for a bunch of reasons, one of which is structural integrity, which is probably one of the most important things. They're also used for rigging and for sound as well, which I'll get into a little bit later. The next thing was painting the set. You can get them for pretty good price at Bunnings or your local hardware store, and we went with theme of white and charcoal black or charcoal grey. The reason for this was we just wanted to make it look a touch modern but nothing too eccentric, and keeping it much more neutral. We then had a lot of kitchen utensils and props in the cupboard space, as well as the kitchen countertop at the back, and this was pretty much sourced by everyone who was involved. This would be the chef, Angel, me and Kurt. So that's pretty much the actual set itself. Let's move into the filming aspects. The first thing that we want to do with the set was to eliminate as much external light as possible. On the ceiling or roof of our warehouse, there's some transparent panels which lets in quite a lot of natural daylight, and to get rid of that, what we did is we put sound blankets over the top of this entire set as well as the front. We want to start from ground zero basically and start with as much darkness as possible. Next, we started putting up the lights. So we had this Aperture 120D with a honeycomb diffuser, and the reason for the honeycomb diffuser is because I don't want the spill to hit too much of these walls, because to be honest, these walls here are very bland. They're pretty much just flat white walls, and so I want the focus to be mainly on the kitchen countertop as well as the chef and Angel in the back. The next lights I had were two Yongnuo LED lights at the same color temperature as the 120D, rigged up to the ceiling beams, and this was just to create a bit more contrast and accents on this chef and Angel. And I had one more Yongnuo LED RGB tube light rigged up to one of the ceiling beams back here, just to give a bit more light and feel to the back end of the set as well. This kind of looks like a drill face, but I like it. It's got a bit of character to it. So that's pretty much the lighting setup. Let's reset this set and look at the camera setup as well. We had 4 different angles. The first camera I want to talk about is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Oh, what a mouthful. But I'm just going to call that the A-Cam, the Master Wide. And the lens on that was the 18-35mm lens. And this was pretty much just on a tripod. And this one was generally just shooting the Master Wide. So just getting the entirety of the set as well as the talent and the cooking that's going on. The next 2 cameras were the GH5s, which were handheld by yours truly, me and Kurt. I'll just put D here for David and K for Kurt over there. And these 2 cameras were primarily to shoot the 2 talents and the cooking that was happening on the kitchen countertop. So this cam here, which is, I guess you can just call it the D cam, is focused more on the talent that's on this side of the line, whereas the K cam was more focused on whoever was on this side of the line. And the reason why was because, say for example, they might switch sides. The next moment their eye line is going to be looking at a different direction, and so that can be quite confusing in terms of continuity. So it was much easier just to focus on keeping our cameras on one side of the line rather than following the subject at all times. The other reason why these are handheld is so that we can move in, get close-up shots, move back, and be flexible with our stylistic choices of shooting. The 4th camera, which wasn't there for like episode 1 and 2, is actually rigged up to one of the supporting beams on the ceiling. So this camera here is the 11-16mm Tokina lens, and pretty much it's just a wide bird's eye angle of the kitchen countertop space. So what I realized from the first 2 episodes was, if we're making a cooking show and trying to make something for people to follow so that they can cook these dishes at home, there needs to be more of an educational angle to it. And so this bird's eye angle really showcased the step-by-step process and the recipe for how to make the dishes. Real quickly as well, I'll just mention that the GH5 cameras, both of them, were using the 24-70mm lenses, and those are just great lenses for that flexibility and focal length. Let's move into the audio setup. So as mentioned with the lighting setup, we had these sound blankets at the top here and around the front. So our studio space in general is not the best for audio because it's quite open air. It's made out of concrete. Just imagine that you're walking through an empty car park and you just raise your voice just a touch. There's a ton of reverb, there's a ton of echo. Sound blankets covering the set were the best way to get rid of that and to keep all the sound within the set. The next thing we had was some sound blankets on the floor just behind the counter, and this was just to dampen the footsteps of Angel and our chef. And then we also had some sound blankets here as well on the floor, so that would dampen the sounds of me and Kurt's footsteps as well when we're operating the cameras. We also did have some extra sound blankets stuck to the side of the walls here as well, and that's just to dampen the sounds further. In terms of the audio gear that we were using, we had pretty much one Zoom recorder, which acted as our mixer as well, and two lavs, all three depending on how many people we had behind the counter. One on Angel, one on the chef, and these were connected to the Zoom recorder here. We also had another shotgun mic, which is also rigged up to the ceiling beam, and this was just to capture the general sound of the cooking as well as their audio as well for synchronization purposes. And that was also connected into the Zoom. In terms of the cameras, we didn't have any microphones attached to them. We found that the onboard microphones on the cameras were enough to capture the sounds, and so we could use that to synchronize all of the audio and all of the video layers. So yeah, you can really see from these diagrams that it was quite a skeleton crew. There's only me and Kurt mainly behind the cams and also operating the audio equipment. We basically just had the chef and Angel. Again, we're working under certain limitations and restrictions because of the COVID rules at the time. And that's another reason why we try to set this up in a way that it's much more streamlined and could be set up really quickly. And yeah, that's pretty much the set. So one of the first things that we had to do to put the episodes together was to synchronize the audio. And Premiere Pro has this really nice feature where if you select all the audio files and right click it, there's an option to synchronize. Sometimes it might be a little bit misaligned, so there's a little bit of tweaking that has to be done, but overall this feature works pretty well. So the next thing after synchronizing all the audio is to set up the multicam sequence. And again, Premiere Pro makes this very nice and easy. All I have to do is select all of the video and audio files that I want in the multicam sequence, nest this, and then right click on that nested sequence and enable multicam. So once the multicam sequence is set up, this is where you can start switching the camera at angles using the numbers on your keyboard. I've been giving Premiere Pro a lot of praise so far, but this is where I have to start sort of talking about the bugs. In the case of my project file right now, Premiere Pro is not automatically putting in the cuts for me, and so I have to do a bit of a workaround, which is not too much work. To be honest, I kind of prefer it at times because it's a bit more precise, but basically I can manually cut the clips and then have the clip selected and switch the angle that way. It's, again, not a big issue, but it is something just to keep note of. So once I got the multicam sequence going, what I like to do is to do a lot of revisions and a lot of drafts. So I'll usually do one scrub through, taking out any unnecessary pauses, ums and ahs, just bits that are unnecessary or irrelevant. Then I'll duplicate that timeline and do the same thing all over again and again until I have the main narrative and the main core structure that I'm looking for. And basically I'll keep doing that until I reach a point where I'm happy with the result that I've gotten. So once that's all done, this is where I like to add that extra style and vibe to the episode with the music, any sound effects and other add-ons that could then enhance the aesthetic.
Bad boys. Coffee into everything.
Coffee scales.
Yeah.
A chef's cure.
A chef's cut.
The X-rated version.
Yeah.
Draining the chicken.
So usually with the music and sound effects and any of that extra stuff, I usually use Envato Elements, which is a subscription service. Not only do they provide royalty-free music, but they also provide lots of different templates for graphics, videos, stock imagery. I find it to be a very well-priced place to get different types of assets to make the workflow so much easier and so much faster. Once that's done, then I'll start using different assets and using After Effects to dynamic link and throw those assets into Premiere Pro. The reason for this is that After Effects is much better, much more powerful than Premiere Pro when it comes to editing graphics and animations. So this would be stuff like the Chef's Cure animation title card and the Instagram pop-ups that come up. After that, that's when I start matching the cams because we're actually shooting with different cameras, the Blackmagic and the GH5s. The GH5s are quite matched, so that's okay. So mainly it's matching the GH5s with the black magic. So once I've matched the cams, this is where I sort of apply a very light grade. I didn't want it to look too stylized or to have a very specific kind of look. To be honest, this series was done in a way of like creating almost like a pilot series. So I kind of went with a more neutral tone, and again, most of this stuff was done in Lumetri color. So looking back on this project, I actually learned quite a lot from it, because this happened at a time when we were just scratching our heads trying to get something to happen. You know, it's 2020, there's lockdowns, there's restrictions. We had plans to do a hospitality series, but then we had to stop doing that because of COVID. And so we were scrambling to make something happen. We were honestly desperate to make something happen. And even though I was feeling really burnt out, we knew that we had to do something rather than nothing. And because we did something, we ended up learning so much from honestly some of the failures that went into this project, as well as a lot of the successes that came out of this project as well. We kind of skipped the pre-production phase and dived headfirst into this project. We had a general vibe, a general idea, and a general sense of what we want to accomplish with the series, and that's all we really used to get this started. So it was around episode 2, well, the end of episode 2, where things start to kind of crash down and the stress and the pressure start to heap onto the project. We're also working with a skeleton crew, so it really helps to have everyone on board and understand their particular roles and what they need to fulfill. And especially in lockdown, we're limited to the amount of people that can work on a set, and the more responsibilities that are happening, the more stress that's going to put on each of us. So in my case in particular, I actually undertake the role of a director and cinematographer, and with those roles comes a list of responsibilities, and if I'm not able to accomplish or achieve what I want to achieve in my role, this then trickles down to the other roles and the other people that I'm working with. So for example, with Angel, the host of the show, I need to help him with prompts and how to navigate the conversation and the narrative that we're trying to have for the show. And if I'm not sure of what we're doing and he's asking me these questions, then I'm not allowing him to fulfill his role as best as possible. And then going on to the cinematography end of things, if I don't have an idea of what I want the show to look visually and stylistically speaking, then when it comes to working with Kurt on the different camera angles and the stylistic shots that we want to do, I'm not able to give him proper pointers on how to achieve those shots. So this really has nothing to do with any individual person not fulfilling their role. It's more so that we were lacking the pre-production end that helped us have that structure and plan of approach to make sure that we knew exactly what we're doing at all times, so that everything was much more seamless. We're feeling that stress, we're feeling uncertain, and so we sat down and decided, okay, before we move on to any more of these episodes, we need to plan this out. And that also leaks into the whole post-production end. When you have all this footage and things are taking longer than it should, everyone's uncertain, there's not a clear narrative, it just makes the editing aspect harder as well, because you then have to fix it in post. So yeah, huge reminder that when it comes to projects, especially when they're scaling up, pre-production is so damn important. This then reminded us of how important trust and communication is. When you're working with a team, it's really a relationship with everyone that's inside your team. Creating an environment where you can speak openly and gain each other's trust is so valuable, because at the end of the day, these are the people that you're working with day in and day out. And if there's generally just not a good and not a fun vibe on set, it translates onto the end product or the outcome as well. And so once we had that sit down conversation and cleared the air and talked about our roles, our responsibilities, our stresses, how we're feeling, and just being very transparent about those things, it was much more of a concise and much more of an efficient set to be on. We were so much more on top of our roles, we were so much more on top of what we're trying to do. Our communication was so much more direct and clear, and the amount of time it took to shoot the episodes as well was drastically reduced. It just made things so much more fun.
Oh.
Look at that.
Oh my God, it's perfect.
Yeah, right.
Perfect egg right there.
Can I feed it to you? Yeah.
Wait.
good
Unheld.
And yeah, I really need to emphasize this, but it's really about making sure we're having fun. Because as much as this is personally for me, my passion and what I really want to do, we want to have fun, we want to enjoy ourselves, and we want the people who we film with to enjoy themselves as well. And all of those things, all of those lessons that we learned in this production, the main thing that we want to do was to have fun. Fun is so important to have on set. Of course, there's going to be times where you're putting your head down, you're getting to work, you're going to be hustling, grinding, you're going to be busy, there's going to be stress, but that stress doesn't have to be coming from a negative place. I want to be able to come out of a production going like, that was a good experience. So yeah, that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the episodes of Chef's Cure if you're down to watch it. Again, it's all on our YouTube. You can check it out on our page. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comment section below, or feel free to DM me. My socials are right here on the screen, and the links are in the description below. Other than that, I hope you guys had a good time, and I'll see you guys next time. Cool. Okay, you can see the name in there now. I'm not sponsored by Rode. I just really like their products. Nested sequence. Try to say that really fast, like over and over again. Nested sequence. Wow, that is actually really hard. Nested sequence. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't do it. Nested sequence. I suck at tongue twisters. Anyways, all right, let's move on.